France is often regarded as the strongest nation to play in the board game diplomacy, but victory is by no means guaranteed. So today we're talking with one of the best French players in the world. He was born in Paris and he won a world championship playing as France. Welcome to Legendary Tactics. We're honored to talk strategy with a world champion diplomacy player, Nicolas Sahuguet. Si vous souhaitez regarder cette entrevue en français, cliquez sur le lien ci-dessous. Thank you for joining us today, Nicolas.
Thanks for having me. I mean, you're really doing great work for diplomacy, and I'm really honored to be a part of this series. And the bar has been set high by the previous guests.
Well, I'm very excited to have especially a French player and one who's won with France. So why don't we start? I'd like to ask you about builds first. So most diplomacy players aren't terribly upset if they get to play as France. They have a lot of options in the early game and strong potential for growth. Spain and Portugal are essentially yours in 1901 without contest if you want them. However, some French players decide to leave one of those in their back pocket just for later. But the real question is what to do about Belgium. Do you suggest trying for 3 builds, or should you be helping either Germany or England into there?
So, I mean, Belgium is always tricky because it's not an easy center to defend when you have it. So usually I consider it as a build and a tool for negotiation. And when you take it, it's a bit like a loan from the bank. You have to do something with it. And then, you know, with the build, you need to really try to do something with it because you will have to pay it back, give it back, or at least you need to, maintain some good credit history with your neighbors. Because if you take Belgium and then you don't do anything with it, usually you end up losing it and things are not going very well. But, getting Belgium is not bad at all. And at least with France, I like to have a say on Belgium in the early games. So I'm not a very big fan of the +3s, taking the 3 centers, because usually unless you have a very big agreement, a very safe agreement with one of your neighbor, it's a good way to just make them ally against you. So as I think I will say later in this interview, what you really need to avoid with France is to get Germany and England to ally against you. So I think Belgium is really a tool that you need to use to get someone to be your friend. So either by giving it to him or by taking it, but by telling him exactly what you want to do with the build and how this is going to help attack the third guy. So I think Belgium is really, you should not take it as, it's one center and then once I have it, I'm never going to give it away. It's just a tool to try to improve either your early tempo or your negotiation with your neighbors.
Oh, very nice. So it's a bargaining chip. I actually think of Austria and Greece the same way, where I'll often take Greece early and use that as a bargaining chip, something that I know I'm not going to be able to hold against Turkey and Italy. So that's great.
And sometimes I try to take Belgium, but in that case, I usually leave one of the Iberian centers open for later. And I'm just saying, okay, I moved toward Belgium for defensive purpose. I took Belgium, but I don't want to be too big too quickly. And then later, when I take Belgium, when I take the other center, either I give back Belgium or I keep Belgium, but I've already understood exactly who is working with me and who is working against me.
Well, that's actually a great way too, because it prevents either Germany or England from growing strong. And then you look like the nice guy when you give it to them and fall back to your Iberian center. That's great. Let's shift to openings. My preferred opening for France is the Atlantic opening. It's fairly standard with Picardy, the Picardy variant, with Fleet Brest going to the mid-Atlantic Ocean, Army Marseille to Spain, and Army Paris to Picardy. It's fairly neutral. It gives you options if England opens to the Channel. But what opening do you think is ideal for France? Am I choosing the right one here, do you think?
I think it's a super strong opening, especially if your neighbors are a bit non-committal. So what I really think is important with France is try to understand if your neighbors want a commitment to an early alliance or if they are happy with the non-committal moves. Because what I've seen is if you say, let's wait and see to players that really want a commitment, sometimes, they commit against you. And so it really depends. if I see that my neighbors are non-committal, they want to wait and see, then I think the opening you propose is really, really strong because it really annoys nobody. It gives you a say on Belgium, and it's all the units are in very good positions. But I don't know if England is telling you let's attack Germany, and Germany is telling you let's attack England, and you basically play moves that are completely non-committal. Sometimes they end up attacking you.
Right.
So to me, it's with France. These are the moves that I would like to enter before I talk to anybody. But then if I feel that things are not going exactly my way, then I start changing. And also, I think with France, you need to avoid at all costs being attacked in 1901. So if you see England and talking to each other a bit too much, and if Italy sometimes is involved with talks with these countries more than like 30 seconds to say hello, then you should maybe think about maybe covering Burgundy. Because if there is a unit in Burgundy, a unit in Piedmont, and a unit in English Channel, you're really in trouble.
Yes.
So for me, it's really that's the opening I would like to try to get, the Picardy, Spain, and the Mid-Atlantic Ocean. But if I have a bad feeling about anything, then usually I try to cover Burgundy. So either by supporting myself to Burgundy or by asking for a bounce in Burgundy, especially with Marseille. Marseille to Burgundy, the bounce is not bad. Because, if I have a bad feeling or if I don't think that anything is really going my way, and then I think letting Burgundy open is really too dangerous. Actually, so that would be my. I mean, France, everything is good. All the moves are doable, but you really need to talk to your neighbors and get a feel with what's happening.
You actually make a wonderful point there, that there's a difference in play between virtual and between face-to-face versus the extended deadline. Because I play a lot of extended deadline diplomacy where I don't get to see how long or how much people are talking. So that can be a challenge, but that's really important, I think, in the other two forms. So let's talk about Italy for a moment. I think it's very important to establish some sort of arrangement with Italy. You don't really want to be attacked by England and Germany, and especially if Italy piles in all at once. So how do you usually approach Italy, and what would you do with a belligerent Italy who moves to Piedmont, for example?
So I think the relationship with Italy when you're France is really, really important. Is my advice. So I went back and forth on exactly how to express this, because you can be successful by attacking Italy, but my advice is you should never be at war with Italy. So either you manage a peace agreement, or you manage to sneak in and get them unawares. But having 2 or 3 fleets in the Med against Italy, and they're having 2 or 3 fleets against you, I think it's bad for both, because Italy can usually defend for a long time, and then England or Germany will have some options to sneak on you. So I'm really trying to make sure that with Italy we're at peace. If Italy attacks, my first instinct is to defend against Italy before defending against anybody else. Because as long as Italy has only 4 centers, they are very fragile, and so they can just decide, okay, I tried, it does not work, let me try to make sure that Turkey is not coming in the Ionian Sea, or Austria is not trying to take Venice from me. And so I think if you manage to stop Italy early, more often than not, they're going to stop attacking you. So the longer you defend against Italy, the more chances they have that they're going to just go back and move around. Well, I think the other two, it's if they have decided to attack you, it's rare that they are changing very, very early. But Italy, I've seen Italy move to Piedmont in 1901, and then in 1902, if they have not taken a center in 1901, then they move away and do something else. So I think defending in 1901 against Italy is a good thing. And then how to approach it in 1901, usually I'm just telling Italy, if we fight, it's everybody else on the board is profiting from that. I mean, then, England and Germany are going to be very happy. Turkey is going to be very happy. Austria is going to be very happy. And usually I say, I'm not a bad player, so you can try to attack me, but it's going to be long and it's going to take time, and maybe you have better things to do. And usually I say, okay, the best alliance between Italy and France is we talk now, we demilitarize the Med, we demilitarize Piedmont, and then we talk in 1906 for the second time in the game, just to see how we can finish the game. Yeah. And so usually that's really the best way to approach the alliance with Italy. But yeah, if you're attacked by Italy, you try to just deny them Marseille at all costs. Right. Because once they are in Marseille, they will want Spain, and they will never let you go.
I think your points are very well taken, because Italy and France really line up along the stalemate line. So it is very possible to stalemate each other there for a long period of time. Let's return to allies for a moment. I generally prefer Germany if I have a choice as an ally, because I feel that England is in a much better position to stab me as France, and is almost exclusively a naval powerhouse and thus a bigger threat. Do you agree with this assessment?
Yeah, I agree with that. But as I said before, what's really important is to avoid at all costs an England-Germany alliance. So I think any alliance structure is good for France. So if England proposes gives you a good proposal and you have a good feeling, you should go for it, because, if you make it to the middle game with France, you should be able to get a good result. Yes. And EF is a very, very strong alliance, so in allying with England. And it's one of the big reasons for that. I think it's pretty easy to play. So in particular, if you're a not very experienced player, once it has started, you attack Germany, you kill Germany, then France takes Tunis, England takes St. Petersburg, you are at 9-9, and usually, you draw the game there. That's many games are finishing at 9-9 between England and France. And it's pretty easy to play. There's no big tension. You just move on. But I think first it's pretty boring. So, I play for fun. So always playing the same game is pretty boring. And I think it is to the advantage of England, because this position at 9-9, I think it's extremely difficult to get England out of its corner after that. Mm-hmm. So unless you believe that you're a much better player and you can manipulate England into making a mistake, I think this is not really the position you want to reach, unless you're satisfied with a shared board top, and maybe the tournament situation is like this, or it's just a short game, and so this is what you want to do. And if I want to go for EF, usually I don't like to support London into Belgium in 1901. And that's what many people do, because I think it gives really too much power to England. And basically, if everything goes right, you get to this 9-9 division of the board, and England is really, has nothing to fear, nothing to lose, and it's very difficult to surprise them. Well, I think if you ally with England from a slightly different position a bit later, 1902 and 1903, its position is not as strong, and so there is still things you can do, or the game is not as simple. Mm-hmm. So as I said, I prefer FG, because I think it's also very strong for France, but the position after England dies remains very, very complex. And right. So in a complex position, the better player is going to make more progress. And so either, because France is going to be better at dealing with Italy, and Germany is going to be less efficient dealing with Russia. And so you can just maybe win the race against your ally, while I think in an EF, it's kind of more difficult. And also, in an FG, you still have to talk to a lot of players on the board. You have to talk to Italy, you have to talk to Russia, and I think it makes a much more interesting game. And there are stabbing opportunities if the other country is not paying attention. Sometimes you can also just take the advantage on your ally without stabbing them. And then you just continue and just say, okay, let's continue. But now I have the advantage, and I'm happy to give you a second place. So I really like it much better. And either you can try the Sea Lion. I think it's the good thing with the Sea Lion is it's very committal. France is making a move in spring 01, And then in Germany has to follow up in fall of 01. So basically, you know whether this is working or not. So I think it's a good opening. At top level, I mean, the rest of the board should react to a sea lion extremely quickly. Yes. But usually it's Germany that is going to be suffering from the overreaction from the rest of the board. And so with France, it's not so bad. But I think then you should help Germany because otherwise you're going to feel very alone very quickly in the game.
So it's interesting. I put a poll out to our viewers on this very question, and we had over 400 votes. We have 28% of people actually prefer France to England. We had 16% agree with you and I that Germany is the better ally, and 7% went for the Western Triple, and 7% also went for either Italy or Austria as their main ally. So is this surprising to you? And also, are you a fan of the Western Triple at all as France?
The Western Triple, I'm not a big fan of the Western Triple. I don't refuse a Western Triple if both Germany and England are proposing it. As I said, what I really am afraid of is that they go after me. And so if you refuse a Western Triple that they both proposed, usually it gives them an excuse to attack you. But it's kind of also pretty boring because it's a bit like an EF, but instead of having 9-9, it's 6-6-6.
Oh, right.
And after that, I mean, the units are not really in good position because English fleets should be in the Mediterranean, but they are in Scandinavia. French armies, I don't know where they are, but they should be in Austria. So, I mean, the last time I played the Western Triple, I mentioned to my allies that Brest should go to England and Munich should go to France. And after that, English fleet should go to the Med and French armies can go and attack Austria. And they look at me with a very strange look. So I just said, okay, let's do the standard thing. and then, I don't know, somebody stabbed somebody and it was pretty boring. I mean, right. But I think that there must be ways to make the Western Triple work, but not the classical way. So hopefully somebody is going to try that someday. And
so
I'll take all the credit, of course.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Let's turn our attention to first builds for a moment. France, I think, has a nice balance between naval and land units, and they also have a need for both. Some argue that the key to success with France is its navy. Do you agree with this? And what and where would you build, make your first builds? And would they change depending on how your alliance structure plays out?
Fleets give France flexibility and armies give France solidity and defensive position. So, I mean, a fleet in the Atlantic Ocean, I think it's one of the strongest pieces on the board. I think a fleet in North Sea is the only maybe the second unit that is more powerful than the fleet in the Atlantic Ocean. When you have fleets, it's very easy to change target, to surprise opponents. And so usually I always build a fleet and an army with my first two builds. I don't remember having built two fleets or two armies in a long. And usually I would prefer a fleet in Brest, but if I'm working with England, it's often the case that the deal is that the fleet should be in Marseille.
Right.
And then if I have my sixth unit is usually a fleet.
Okay.
And after that, it really depends on what's happening. And what's the position. And I usually like to have at least two armies in France on the continent, one in Gascony and one somewhere else to defend. And so if I send one of my armies somewhere else, like I convoy it to England or I send it to Italy, then I'd like to rebuild an army so that my position remains very solid.
That makes sense.
And then for the rest of the game, it really depends what your objective is. I think building fleets give you flexibility, and if you are ambitious and you want to solo, I think that's what you need to do. If you're a bit more afraid that things could go wrong for you, because I mean you're not that experienced or you have very strong players around you, then building armies make your position very solid. But you should never build too many armies.
Right.
But yeah. As many fleets as you can, but under the constraint that your position remains solid. That would be my advice. France, very often, what you need to do well is not exactly the same thing as what you need to do if you want to do very well.
Right.
Because France is very strong defensively. So if you play it safe, Usually, I mean, from a good position, you're going to remain solid and nobody's going to really contest you. But if you want to go for the big result and maybe a solo, then you need to sometimes build more fleets and have a position that is a little bit less solid at home.
That's a really good distinction. I also like that fleet in Marseille. That seems to accomplish your goal of keeping Italy off your coast there. So, so let's talk about the Mediterranean. When would you consider a shift to the Mediterranean once you've sorted things out with England or Germany? Probably one of them is dead. How important is it to have fleets down in the Western Mediterranean?
So I said that, attacking Italy can be very frustrating, as you need many units to make slow progress. However, taking centers in Italy is super useful. So you should always look after, the possible sneak attack on Tunis. So if Italy has moved a couple of fleets too far towards Turkey and you think that you can take Tunis, then maybe you should go for it. And then if you believe that, you have the upper end, then you should just keep going. But as soon as you see that you're not making progress, unless your position in the north is really, really, really solid and you have completely killed England and Russia has no fleets in the north, Germany is really has sent its fleets towards Russia, then you can keep going. Otherwise, you need to be very careful because if you have 3-4 units kind of paralyzed defending Tunis and doing nothing, then it's not super good. So the element of surprise against Italy is very, very important.
Very nice. And would you take Tunis with an army or a fleet?
Fleet, usually. I don't see what the army is doing there, so...
I think it's trapped, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have too many armies on your continent, and then maybe you can use one but yeah, I mean, what is it doing there?
Yeah. So just before we move on to the next question, if the viewer watching this guide is getting value from this video, we'd certainly appreciate it if you take a moment to stab the like button. But getting back to the game, I'm interested in how big France should get. I played against a strong France in the Liberty Cup, and he waved a build when he captured his 6th dot so that he wouldn't appear to be growing too quickly. That surprised me. But how do you manage the impression that France is, number one of the strongest powers to start with, and number 2, that they can explode out of the gates quickly and get strong really quickly? Or to put this another way, how do you handle the diplomatic side of the game as France, or the perception of France?
So it depends on your objective of the game, and also what type of game you have. Is it time limited or time unlimited? And it depends also on what was your alliance from the start. So, if you're in an EF and Germany is dead, then I think the very important thing is make sure that England is not going to stab you.
Right.
And so, you should just, reevaluate exactly where your units are and make a plan, maybe with talking with England, and just make sure that they have something to do and you have something to do, and that what they have to do does not involve taking your centers. And usually it's not so easy. That's why in the EF, when you start getting big, usually it's time to think about the draw, because if you send all your units south, England will have opportunities, and unless you trust them very much, usually it's a good time to think about the draw. When England is eliminated, I think that's when things get really, really interesting. And usually it's also the time when you have to decide whether you want to try for the solo or you're just going to settle for a big result. Because I think then the strategies are very different. Because usually if you attack Germany, you're going to get to 15 centers without too much trouble. I mean, unless Germany is a very good player and you make some mistakes. But then you're going to be stopped. I mean, the rest of the board is going to rush to the stalemate line, and and so there, I think it's when you don't really need to have too many centers or take too many centers, but you want to get into a good position. Maybe you want to have your ally Germany getting involved in too many conflicts on the other side of the board. And then you need to also try to control what's happening on the other side of the board. So, for example, you know that at some point you will need to attack Italy. So maybe you just want to make sure that Turkey is getting stronger. And then when the board is taking the shape that you want, then you can make a move. So, for example, very often, Italy is getting attacked by Turkey. You move to help Italy, and then that's when you can start getting centers from Italy because they're happy that you take their centers rather than Turkey. And once you have a couple of centers in Italy, then it opens up the opportunities to stab Germany, and then the 15 centers can easily transform in more. But it's really not easy to do that. So that's a bit the issue with France is once you're big, everybody is looking at you, and so usually you should try to make it in a way that you are not the biggest in the middle game, even if your position is really, really strong. So sometimes people tend to just look at the number of centers. And so if you have a big Russia on the other side of the board, or if Germany is big but is involved in lots of conflict in the East, then it can be just a way for you to say, oh, look, I'm not the leader, I'm not the big danger. And another thing that I like to do with France is not to eliminate either England or Germany. I think it's very good to just weaken one and then try to say, oh, I'm not going to finish you, but do you want to be working with me for the... And then, if, for example, England, they have 2 centers left, and then you say, okay, why don't you attack, Russia or Germany or things like that? And then if they make some progress, you say, okay, every time you make progress, I'll take a center from you. And and then at some point you can stab both Germany and what remains of England at the same time.
Yeah.
Same thing with Germany. Sometimes, you attack Germany, they have 2-3 centers left, and that's the point where you just attack England. And then Germany is happy to help you a little bit. And then Germany is so weak at the end that it's not a big problem for you. So I think trying to eliminate one of the other two might not be the best strategy. But once again, it's a safe choice. So with France, you always have a safe choice that gives you like a good result. And sometimes you try to go for the kind of more dangerous strategic choice. But if it works, then you're going to get even better results.
Well, that sounds good. So let's talk about 18 centers. To solo as France, where would you pick up your centers? I imagine it's inevitable that at some point you need to stab Germany to do this. And also, which centers are the best options for the 18th dot? I mean, I'm looking at Denmark or Trieste, or do you have other options that you suggest?
So usually the classic 18 for France is you get all England, all Germany, all Scandinavia, you get St. Petersburg, and you get Tunis for your 18th center.
Right.
The only problem is, as I said, if you go a bit too straightforwardly for this plan, usually Berlin and Munich are not so easy to get, because if the East see that, then they're going to try to stop you. They're going to send armies. I mean, from Prussia and Silesia, they can defend Berlin for a very long time. And so usually if you can get 1 more or 2 more centers in Italy, then you don't need Berlin and Munich, and all the others are going to fall. So I think the ideally is you get a couple of centers in Italy, and to do that, usually you need to do it diplomatically, so that Italy gets attacked by Turkey, and then you go, you help, and then you manage to get at least 1 center out of it, like you get Rome, Turkey is in Naples. But this 1 center can be the difference, because after that, you can, if you stab Germany, if you get Munich, basically you're there. So, nice. And there are some other, I've seen some other things happening that, France is really going to the Med and is taking lots of centers. And then after that, once you have 2 or 3 centers in Italy and then a couple of centers in Austria, then you don't need so many centers in Germany to get to 18. But usually it really means that Germany was very, very trustworthy, and then they got a bit too optimistic. And same thing with England. Sometimes you crush the board with England, and England forget that you have a couple of fleets that can move north quickly, and then once you have just started getting a couple of dots from England, everything can just fall into your lap.
That's
so
right.
It's, but the classic thing is, you kill England, then you take a couple of dots in Italy, and then you stab Germany. I think that's the, but it's a bit too obvious. So that's the problem with France, is that the solo plan is a little bit obvious. So usually as soon as you have Tunis, everybody says, oh, the solo is almost there. And so if you want to make it work, usually you have to really make it a bit less obvious.
Are there any other strategies? Have we covered everything a player needs to know, or do you have any final words of advice to play France well?
I wanted to say one thing about France. I think one very important thing is to learn how to defend, especially when things go wrong early. So France has a very strong defensive position, so you can really defend and resist. And as I said, players are impatient. So if you really don't give up, you work diplomatically and everything, you have a good chance to not be killed. So in particular, you should really talk to Russia, to Austria, to Italy. And Russia can put pressure on England in the north, and if they have to use one fleet against Russia, maybe they cannot take mid-Atlantic Ocean. Same thing with Germany. If they start getting Russian armies or Austrian armies in the east, maybe they will have to give up on attacking you. And the last thing that I have done several times is to ask Italy for help. So when I won the World DeepCon in 2006 in Berlin, in fact, I got attacked from the start by England and Germany.
Oh, wow.
And I think in 1902 or 1903, so England had 3 fleets against mid-Atlantic Ocean, and I had only 2 fleets. So this looked bad. But basically, I asked Italy to move to the Western Mediterranean, which he did, and then to support me in mid-Atlantic Ocean. And after that, the next turn, Germany stabbed England.
Oh,
they thought, okay, nothing is happening. We are not breaking into France. We have to do something else. So, this is a very, very strong diplomatic defensive move. I've done it many times. And then even with England, you just tell England, Italy is helping me. They can take, Spain, or they can take Marseille whenever they want. But for now, they have decided to help me, and I'm going to just trust them. And then, in a time-limited game, you tell them, they will just stab me at the end, and you get nothing. You never top the board. And in a long, time-unlimited game, you just tell them, Italy is going to stay there. And then at some point, they're going to take Marseille, then they're going to take Spain, and it's 2 centers on the other side of the stalemate line. Do you really want that? So this is a very, very strong defensive move. And if it works, it's really good. So that's the other advantage of learning to play defense against France, is if you manage to basically destroy an EG alliance, after that, you can really open your playbook, because basically you can attack Germany, you can attack England, you can attack both, you can lie to them, and you can always tell them, you attacked me, so what do you want? And that's where you get sometimes your best results, because once England and Germany are kind of in a mess, one has stabbed the other, you can really play one against the other. And that's when France is getting super strong. They have no enemies, they have only friends. When they're making progress, people are just thinking, oh, but France was attacked from the start. So learn how to play defense, because first it can save you games and you get reasonable result. And also if you can turn things around, it's sometimes the best French positions that you can get. So really defense with France, learn how to do it. And also the second thing about defense is if Italy attacks you, you need to know the stalemate line to defend against Italy. It's easy, with Marseille, Spain, Mid-Atlantic Ocean, Gascony. And sometimes you just tell Italy stalemate line, and the minute they hear about stalemate line, they just decide that, okay, they better do something else, because while many people that try to counterattack say, oh, maybe I can take Tyrrhenian Sea or whatever. No. Whenever Italy attacks and they have strength, you just move back to your stalemate line position and you just tell them, okay, now I'll wait. I have 4 units and you never take anything. And usually they stop. So I think these 2 tricks, asking Italy to come to help you and then telling Italy, I'm going to go back to my stalemate line position and you'll never get anything. It's super, super useful to know.
That's amazing.
So that would be my advice with people. Don't only learn how to attack, also learn how to defend, because it can be very, very useful.
I really love how you play France. Thank you for that. And we really appreciate you helping us fine-tune our play today, Nicolas. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Okay, so thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity, and also thanks a lot for that we are doing the interview in French. It's going to hopefully help the French hobby to learn a few things about opening, and maybe it gives you also some viewers. And maybe the French hobby also will give a look at the previous series where Tanya, Doug, Chris, and Russ have done a fantastic job. And hopefully I'll manage to convince them to go and have a look at this video.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. We've been fortunate to have some of the world's best diplomacy players sharing their strategies and thoughts here on Legendary Tactics. If you haven't seen our strategy guides for the other nations yet, be sure to check those out, and don't forget to stab that subscribe button. Thanks so much for your time.